everybody. Welcome to the Sharon and Joe Show. My name is Sharon.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joe.
So if you guys are regular viewers of my channel, you know that I am a huge animal lover. Joe too, but a less of an animal lover, a more guarded around animals.
Sharon has her PhD not only in narcissism, but also in veterinary science. So she definitely is a lover of animals.
Big fan. And Joe and I have several animals together, and one of the animals that we have together is a cat. No, actually, Joe brought this cat into the relationship, and I'll tell you guys something. I used to have these 3 cats. It was Cana, Arabia, and Lucretius. Arabia, I got this cat. She was about 6 months old, this stray cat. She had kittens 9 weeks later. But that's what led me to go into veterinary medicine. But anyways, so Cana, her daughter, died when she was 9 years old. She had cancer, and it was extremely traumatic for me. I used to sleep with this cat in my arms every single night. It was just, it was gut-wrenching. And I was pregnant with Paris at the time when she died. So I told Cana one night I would never get another cat. I told her, never, just your mom and your brother, and you never again. And I stuck to that. I have had so many animals. You know, Paris and I were talking. I think the only animal I haven't had is like a gerbil. We haven't had a gerbil, but we've had everything except a cat. And Paris, of course, wanted a cat so desperately. So when Joe and I moved in together, he had 2 cats. And I really, for a while, I tried to keep my distance from them because I didn't want to betray Cana. But as time went on, I've grown to actually be very, very fond of both cats. And Fritz is the cat that we have left.
Yeah, and he was getting older, and Sharon will explain to you what had happened, but he was supposed to get a surgery. Honey, you want to explain to him?
Yeah, he has a little mass on his chest. It's not cancerous, it's fine, and he doesn't really need to have it taken off. But Paris and I take care of this all the time. Not to be gross, but there is some oozing on it. So we take care of this a lot. And finally, I was like, you know what, let's just have this thing taken off. So we go in, and he had routine blood work. And I was shocked to find out that he has diabetes. It was a real shock to me. I didn't suspect it at all. Once we realized that he has diabetes, in retrospect, we're thinking about these symptoms. Like I said, it took me a while to warm up to this cat. And I wasn't mean to him or anything, but I wasn't loving on him the way I am with little Fiona, Joe's dog. I had my walls up. I was really serious about that promise I made Cana. So I didn't know this cat that well, and I didn't know him prior anyways. But in retrospect, he had a lot of signs of diabetes that I didn't know them. But once you realize, okay, he has diabetes, I'm realizing, oh my gosh, he did do this. He has this symptom, that symptom. So we got him. So we treat him now. I guess that we didn't get him treated.
Yeah,
we treat him.
He's doing good. Thank God. Thank you, Sharon.
Well, he's on his insulin, and he's doing great.
Yeah.
So he's a new cat, and he's perfect, and he's healthy. And like I said, in retrospect, we could look back. Something similar, not medically, well, I guess maybe medically, psychologically, happened with Joe and I recently. You guys know Joe has CPTSD, and he's talked about it at length on the channel. And part of that, when you have it, sometimes when you have a symptom, you have to remember it. Well, this is it too. He realized a new symptom. Now, many of you have PTSD, CPTSD, whatever it is. I get that. Joe realized something, just like in retrospect with the cat, is actually a symptom of CPTSD. So, Joe, you want to talk about it?
It was, this is not all the time. I was going to bring up the word procrastination. I've been procrastinating a lot. Not all the time I procrastinate has anything to do with anything other than just me being lazy. Although about 2...
So it's procrastination is what you're talking about?
Yeah, and this time around, I finally, my God conscious, brought it to the light, And guys, I've been procrastinating on really stupid crap, like a doctor's appointment, a dentist appointment.
So this suddenly just came to you? You
realized
realized
this? Came to me in the kitchen about 2 months ago, why? The why behind I was procrastinating. And, of course, fear rears this ugly head. But it dawned on me, my thinking, a lot of times, I call it, traumatic thinking. I'm still, anxious, afraid, hypervigilant about little things. But I remember it's that could be this in the back of my mind. This could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Something as stupid as, if I paid a bill that was late, they're going to tell me I owe another $100, or just something really goofy. And it just came to my attention. I shared it with Sharon, and then that kind of connected the dots with her to say, oh my God, I've been doing the same thing. Now, granted, we've gotten a lot accomplished. However, this was something that just dawned on us like the last couple of years, like our thinking.
Aren't you like me? And you have, I don't know if I want to say now, but when I was with my ex, the silent treatment was his weapon of choice, and it really, really, really bothered me. So I would always try to avoid it. So if there was something I thought could bring on a silent treatment, I would try to avoid it. I lived in fear of that panic. And when Joe and I were talking about this procrastination and the fear, I think it's similar. I'm trying to avoid a silent treatment, right? In my prior relationship, Joe and I, with this trauma-based thinking, we're so used to trying to avoid a problem, avoid a narcissistic episode, that it's just the thought of fear. Like, even if you're not consciously aware of it, like I did the same thing. I would have these ridiculous things, like my son getting his learner's permit. It took me forever to sign him up to take a class for that. And I think it was just because it was a lot of money and there was a little bit of fear. Not that I was afraid of the driver's ed, but I was just, I was afraid. There was enough panic where I thought, I'll put it off till tomorrow. And I did the same thing with like dentist and things like that are really nothing. But I think I was just trying to avoid the bad feeling.
Yeah, I mean, we were tripping over the molehills
Yeah.
and not the mountains. Like we just thanks to God and with His help, we conquered a huge mountain. We faced our greatest fears. Now it's the little molehills because our thinking is still, and not all the time it is, in understanding why.
Well, it's 20 years that becomes a pattern in your brain.
A groove in the record.
Yeah.
And becoming aware, and I think that's from God, like an awareness of the why behind I'm doing this. Like everything starts with an awareness,
Yeah.
And when we did, we shared it with each other and we were willing to do something different. We held each other accountable and together, like, even if we were states away the way we used to 3 or 4 years ago, we lived in different states, we still did things to hold each other accountable. And it just, when you throw action in procrastination, that's a huge monkey wrench. And if you have direction and willingness, you're going to get it done.
I mean, the first thing you need to do, of course, like Joe said, is have an awareness. I'm going to tell you what helped me the most, and maybe this will help you too. So Joe and I talked about this, and we realized it's this fear-based trauma. We're always trying to avoid that, is telling somebody else. So for me, I mean, imagine if I told you, oh, you guys, I'm going to lose 10 pounds. I'm going to start working out. And then I don't. It's embarrassing, when you see me and you're like, oh, she said she was going to do this. So telling someone else. Recently, because I was going to say, I have this, I don't want to say it's a problem. It's something Joe doesn't like that I do or don't do. I keep a lot inside. And the reason that I do that, not everything, see, Joe's more open with me than I am with him. And it's not that I'm hiding things from him, but I don't like talking about things that really upset me. So because of that, and it's like the same thing. And maybe just while I'm talking to you now, that's a CPTSD or PTSD thing too.
Sure.
Because I'm afraid for 2 reasons. One, if I tell Joe and then he gets upset, then we're both upset. And then I'm dealing with my issue and him on top of it. Or even if he gave me the perfect comfort and was just like babying me and doing, whatever, because I spoke about it, now I'm going to be feeling worse because what I really want to do is push it down until it goes away. So what I started doing is telling Joe certain things I needed to do. And I didn't tell you, Joe, I was like proud of myself because I thought, I'm going to tell him this. Normally, not that, like I said, not that it's a secret, but if I had to call the dentist, say, and I didn't tell Joe, or he never knows about it, it's fine. But for me, I'd keep putting something like this off. So I told him, this happened about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I started doing this. I said, Joe, I have these 2 things I have to do today. You need to ask me about them later. And just like if I told you I was going to lose weight or whatever, if I don't do it, I feel bad. I'm embarrassed. So I knew once I told you that then I would have to do it. And I did. And that, maybe that will help some of you. Like, tell someone else, look, I'm going to do this, because you'll feel stupid if you don't.
And it's so silly. Like, these are things that everyday people do all the time, And just, as weird as it is, like when we get it done, there's a sense of self-worth that comes in. I think that's the underlying theme in my life.
That's so true. And then it also makes you more likely to do it again.
It builds momentum, and it's just doing the next right thing or what's right in front of you. It builds momentum. And before you know it, like, you got the molehills and the mountains conquered, with God's help, of course.
Yeah, I agree. And that was just something that we realized lately. There's more to it than, fear on the obvious things. There's things on so many levels. And when you realize one, just like with Fritz, like we realized, well, gee, he was drinking a lot. Once you can do something about it. So this was something that Joe realized recently. And then we talked and we're saying, oh my gosh, there we have, there's something else. And once you can move forward and conquer it, however works best for you. But like you said, Joe, awareness is the first step, the most important step. Otherwise, it never gets done.
And that's where I think God comes in, because like I was absolutely in the dark. It's like, if there's a problem, I better know what it is in order to find a solution. And I didn't know.
Well, this is like kind of a bigger topic for right now, but that is like the whole thing with narcissism. You don't know. Like when I look back in my relationship, entanglement, whatever it is, there were so many things that today I'm like, oh my gosh, how could I have missed that? But I was going on ignorance, not knowing. And next thing you know, 20 years passed.
The important work, though, is the shadow work, is the inner work. Most empaths have the gift of insight, and they have some degree of honesty. So at first, my journey started off with just understanding that, okay, the narcissist is out of the equation now. Like understanding that, whoa, I'm part of the problem. And thank God, because if there's a problem and it's me, I could do something about it. But it's the rigorous honesty of looking at ourselves, finding out why, the why behind things. And not everything is CPTSD or PTSD or anything like that. It requires the inner work. But it was a miracle. And because of that awareness, with willingness and action, like building on my self-worth. And that's what it's all about.
Well, I think that's why a lot of people say after they've been through something horrible, they're a better version of themselves. Because if you do the work, you are going to be a better version. It's just like I don't want to tell Joe something that upsets me because then I'm going to feel worse. It sucks looking at it, looking at something you don't want to look at. I just want this to go away. But at the end of the day, if you do that, if you work on it and realize and keep going, it will get better.
And there's a saying, more will be revealed. So, to say that we recovered is fair. Like, we're in a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. We are no longer hopeless, so we recovered. After that, it's just spiritual growth and evolution. It's just evolving. And it's funny because it's not like... the type of training that, have you ever seen the Rocky movies?
Yes.
It's not the ego. It's like the true self, which is why, as silly as it sounds, like these little things I procrastinated on, like getting them done, it gives me a sense of self-worth, because I know with God's help, I can conquer mountains. But everyday life and the day-to-day things, some of them I can get through, other ones, I get afraid. So it's conquering those fears. It's just building faith.
I agree, and that's what we're doing. We hope you guys are doing that. I'm going to end it now. So thank you, Joe, for joining me tonight.
Share in your comments, guys. Like we just realized recently, procrastination was a big one for us. But if you guys have any other awarenesses, share them in the comments and share what your experience was, because as we learn off each other.
Yes, please do. All right, I hope everybody has a great day, and I will see you on Monday. Bye, everybody. God bless.